Hello, welcome back to the Life Runners podcast. Summer is slowly approaching. It's pretty incredible that it's already towards the end of April, but May is just around the corner, and as we enter the summer months, all of the major watch auction houses are hosting their watch auctions in Geneva. So today I'm going to be going over some of the lots that that kind of caught my eye from the major watch houses, those being Phillips, Antiquorum, Christie's, and Sotheby's, and sort of going over some of the pieces that they have found for their watch auctions that are going to be taking place in Geneva. There's a lot of really great variety, and I think there are some standout watches that are pretty exciting to go over. There are a couple highlights that I think are very exciting that we're going to see, and we'll kind of give an idea of sort of where the watch auction market is right now. Interestingly, the economy is in a very interesting place, and I think the pulse on the watch auction market is always great to sort of take during this time. It was quite interesting. I was listening to Significant Watches, the Significant Watches podcast. Shout out to Significant Watches. What you guys are creating is really incredible, and easily one of the best podcasts out there. So if you are not following Significant Watches, be sure to check that out. But it was quite interesting to hear sort of their perspective on the auction calendar. A lot of the times what they were saying is, you have the auctions in obviously Geneva, Hong Kong, New York. But what's interesting is a lot of the times by the time you get to the New York watch auctions, sometimes the collectors are sort of spent out by the time the New York auctions roll around. And so looking at the pieces in Geneva, it can be telling it can be telling in the idea that, these are watches and a lot of people are probably going to try and get their hands on. So I'll stop sort of rambling for this intro, and I'll sort of jump straight into the first auction house that we'll cover, and that is Phillips. So Phillips will be hosting their Geneva watch auctions from the 13th to the 14th of May next month. Oh, and by the way, I'll put links in the show notes of this podcast if you want to take a look at each of the lots as I talk through them. I'm going to put links to every single one of them that I go through. So, as I said, the Geneva watch auction for Phillips is going to be taking place on the 13th and 14th of May. They've got a real great selection of pieces. I've put a couple of them on the Life Runners Instagram, so check those out. I think most recently I posted a really cool 2526 in platinum. It's one of 24 known platinum examples of the 2526. What's really cool about this one is it actually has diamond hour markers. I'm not sure if that is actually what this watch is manufactured with. There is another enamel dial that it does come with, and I don't know, but that might be the original dial, and the platinum hour indice dial might be a replacement. But at least you have the original 2526 enamel dial. So that's something I posted on the Life on the Wrist Instagram. But the first watch that I wanted to talk about that's taking place that is being auctioned off is lot 206. It's an Audemars Piguet reference 831, which is a very, very rare yellow gold chronograph with full calendar. Audemars Piguet complicated pieces are very rare to find on the market. I think we've talked about these about Audemars Piguet complicated pieces, and just Audemars Piguet vintage watches in general are very difficult to find. But this reference 831, as I said, is a 18 karat yellow gold full calendar with chronograph watch from 1943. It's 33 millimeters in diameter, so it's on the smaller side for many collectors. 33 millimeters for some is a sweet spot, for some is a little bit too small. But the rarity of this complicated piece is pretty incredible, and it's really nice to see this type of watch being sourced for this auction. If I look at the pictures of this piece, the lugs look fairly sharp. I think there might be some polishing, but in general, this watch is in fairly good condition. The dial has a really nice sort of yellow hue. I think it is a little bit of patina on it, which is quite nice. It is kind of interesting to see this watch is from 1943, but then the subdials that indicate the month and the day of the week are pretty white. And I don't know if it's the difference in the the materials used for those subdials, but that is something to call out. Nevertheless, this watch is really beautiful. You have the month, the moon phase, the day of the week. It really is, and then at 12 o'clock you have the date. It really is a beautiful piece, and it's so exciting to see Audemars Piguet and a vintage Audemars Piguet come to market. I'm very curious to see what this watch ends up going for. One of the watches that I did feature on the podcast on the Life on the Wrist Instagram page is Lot 22 from Phillips, which is a reference 1579, which is a yellow gold 1579 with spider lugs and Breguet numbers that are, I believe, painted onto the dial. This is super, I think, very, very rare. I think many people are saying that this example might be unique. It's basically the perfect storm of everything you would want. A 36 millimeter chronograph from Patek Philippe 1579 with Breguet numbers, blue hands. In my opinion, a really unique and historical piece from the company. Dial is in really great condition. The patina is pretty even. There is, if you look at sort of at 4 and 5 o'clock, maybe just a little bit more over on that side, but overall the watch looks really, the dial looks really great. The case is also really strong in my opinion. Doesn't look like there was a ton of polishing on this watch. So overall it's in really cool sort of, in my opinion, original condition. There is a little bit of oxidation on the side of the case, which I think is also really nice, gives the case a little bit of a different warmth. I love oxidation on gold cases, which is probably why I'm calling that out, but another really nice piece from them. A personal favorite, if you know me and know Life on the Wrist, is the Chocolatone from Vacheron Constantin. There is a reference 6440, which is lot 91 from 1961. This is a time-only Chocolatone with the automatic movement. This was after they moved away from the manual wine movements. If you haven't seen on our website, we've covered on Life on the Wrist, we've covered the Chocolatone's history. A really exceptional example, and a nice opportunity to get these pieces. The case kind of looks polished on this one. I'm not positive, but it kind of does. I haven't seen this in the flesh. It'd be helpful for me to see it in the flesh, but overall, the watch is really, really strong. I think the dial is also in pretty cool condition. The hour markers have a little bit of patina on it. It is even for the most part. If you look at the 12 and 11 and 6 o'clock hour markers, they're a little bit different in color. But again, for me, the piece really, what speaks to me about this piece is the case and the design of the case. And for me, it's a really beautiful example. It wouldn't be a auction season without a 1518 coming to auction. There is a lot number 103 at Phillips is a yellow gold perpetual calendar chronograph reference 1518 from the manufacturer. I think the 1518 has been spoken about in at lengths. There's about 218 examples of the 1518, about 281 examples of the 1518. It's believed that about 215 were made in yellow gold and 58 made in pink gold, 4 made in steel. Obviously, this has incredible provenance. Every Patek Philippe collector or collector in general is looking for something like this. It's a wonderful example and pretty desirable. I do think that there was maybe some polishing on the case. You can kind of see the lugs look a little bit curved. Dial in general is in pretty good condition. If you look at the hour markers, they're pretty even. 10 and 11 look a little bit lighter, but overall really strong looking dial. And if you're looking for a 1518, this is definitely something to consider. If you flip the watch over, the underside of the case actually has a little bit of oxidation, which is pretty cool. Looks really nice. The hallmark that is stamped into the lug is actually pretty visible. So, if there was polishing on this watch, it's still in pretty good condition. I'm going to end the Geneva watch auctions, the Phillips Geneva watch auction with a watch that it would be remiss if I did not mention it. Lot 110 is an MB&F Legacy Machine X. This was the watch that they released to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Legacy Machines. It really is a sight to be seen. It's one of 18 in 18 karat pink gold. I love MB&F, and so what's going to be interesting is the estimate for this piece, I think, is extremely low. It's estimated to go between 40 and 80,000. If you look on the secondary market, the Legacy Machine ones that were released at the beginning of the Legacy Machine line are kind of selling for around the 60 to 70, or I'd say probably 70 to 80 mark, US dollar right now. And so I think this is pretty low for the technology that you're getting in this LMX. Again, they're probably trying to be conservative, but I do think it's going to go for more than that. So exciting to see what this goes for. And I think for me, it's just exciting to see the strength of a brand that I loved from basically the first moment I saw them. And I like to think that I've kind of supported MB&F at Life on the Wrist for a long time, but I loved MB&F, very early on in their existence. And so, I don't know, for me, it's kind of like watching and this is a stupid analogy, but it's kind of like watching your kids succeed. It's really nice to see a brand that you've loved for a long time succeed. Moving on, I'm going to talk through the Antiquorum auction that's going to be taking place. There were some cool pieces. Again, I'm posting a lot of these on the Life on the Wrist Instagram page, so check that out. But one of the pieces that I haven't posted is the Patek Philippe reference 1252 Chameleon in yellow gold. I don't think there are many examples of this that have been produced. I think it's an extremely rare Patek Philippe watch. But basically, what you've got is this. I believe this was a lady's watch, but you have this bracelet that has a chameleon that wraps around your wrist and sits. The head of the chameleon kind of sits by the just above 12 o'clock. These are extremely rare, a very unique piece, and I think it kind of is in line with a lot of the like the Serpenti style of watches, where you have these interesting bracelet designs that companies are sort of releasing. I think this watch is going to go for way more than what the estimate is. It's estimated to go between 50 and 100,000 Swiss francs. I do think it's going to go for more, just based on the idea that this is an extremely unique piece from 1949. Time-only piece, extremely simple dial. Dial is in fairly good condition. The crystal looks a little bit scuffed. I'm not sure if that's just the pictures they took, but around the corners it kind of looks a little bit scuffed. But in general, I think what you're getting with this watch is a ridiculously rare piece. This was purchased at a very. It's nice that Antiquorum sort of goes through this, but I'll read their notes. Purchased at a small auction house in the south of France over 30 years ago, we're proud to offer at auction the second only known reference, 1252, the only other one being at the Patek Philippe Museum under inventory number P107, representing a sculpted chameleon with its tail gracefully wrapped around the gold frame hinged in its middle, the first ever opportunity to acquire probably one of the most decorative and unusual ladies Patek Philippe watch Patek Philippe ever created. This is clearly an exceptionally rare piece, and I think that's what's going to draw a lot of attention to this lot for the Antiquorum auction. So check this out in the show notes. I encourage you to do so. There's a really cool lot 185, reference 570 with a black dial. It's confirmed that this black dial, reference 570, was born with this piece in the extract from the archives. It was made in 1941 and sold in 1941 as well. Black dial, yellow gold case, 18 karat yellow gold case with yellow gold applied hour markers. You have numerals at 3, 9, and 12. sub-seconds dial with leaf hands. It really is an exceptional example, and the 570 is super, super desirable. Black dials are even more rare. So I think this is probably going to attract some collectors by far, especially those who like these like black dials and like rare sort of Patek Philippe watches. This one is apparently the owner of this watch was owned by a German family apparently, so kind of cool to also sort of put that put that in perspective. The last lot I want to talk about for Antiquorum is a watch that I think I've spoken about at lengths, but there's a reference 1463 in pink gold with a pink gold dial that's coming to auction. It's a really beautiful example. Looking at the images of it, the lugs look really sharp. Case overall looks pretty good. I haven't seen this in the flesh, but overall the case looks like it's in pretty good condition. You can see the differences in polishing on the case, so kind of optimistic about the case originality. Dial's in very, very good condition as well. The pink gold looks absolutely amazing with the case. So that's really a really nice example if you are looking for that. It's known, scholars believe that only about 145 of these examples were made in pink gold, so pretty rare too. All right, I know that this is probably going to be one of the longer episodes that we've released, but I hope this is at least entertaining in some way. I'm going to move on to Christie's. Christie's is actually hosting the Art of F. Pigeon, where they're going to be auctioning off a variety of F. Pigeon pieces. A lot of these pieces are pretty rare, pretty desirable by collectors, and fairly unique with a lot of the ones that they're going to be offering. I'm not going to go over any of the pieces, but I do encourage you to take a look at the auction if you are interested in F. Pigeon and what they are doing. I think it's another independent brand that's doing really well and getting a lot of recognition. I really hope that F. Pigeon isn't going to get too hot where you see these brands that get a lot of attention, a lot of desire by collectors, but then sort of fall off because of the hype around that specific brand. I don't think that's going to be the case with F. Pigeon. I think there's a lot of substance in their brand and what they're producing, so don't think that's going to be a case, but I encourage you to check out the Art of F. Pigeon being hosted by Christie's. One of the other auctions they're going to have is rare watches. This is obviously in line with the Phillips auctions. They've got some nice modern pieces, some nice vintage pieces as well. I'll talk through a couple of the pieces that really stood out to me. There's a really beautiful lot number 38 is a Laurent Ferrier stainless steel limited edition annual calendar wristwatch with power reserve indicator. It's a really nice blue dial with orange accents on it. I think Laurent Ferrier is a incredible watchmaker. I think he's gotten a lot of recognition, but I wanted to call this out because it's one of 10 pieces that were made this piece was made in 2021, and an incredibly, in my opinion, unique sort of design, but has sort of a classic look to it. I think this is one of the modern pieces that I encourage you to check out for this specific auction. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what happens with lot number 64. 64 is a Cartier crash that was manufactured in 1991. It's number 100 of 400. The Cartier crashes have been in the news, or they're in the watch news quite a lot recently. There was a really interesting Cartier, there was some Cartier crashes that went for in the millions, I think late last year, but then there was one that sold at Phillips in New York in I want to say November, December, that only went for about 300,000. There was a lot of controversy. There's an Instagram account that sort of went into detail about why the Cartier crash was a little bit suspect, felt a little bit off when you compared it to other crashes. But this one's from 1991. It's going to be interesting to see what this actually sells for. It is a limited of 400 pieces, but I think this will actually give us sort of like a pulse check on what what the market is feeling about vintage or about Cartier watches. I think there's a lot of interest in these pieces. If you look at the case though, sort of towards the I'd say where 10 or 11 o'clock sort of is on the dial. If you look at the case, it does look like there's a little bit of, I don't want to call it damage, but there's something happened with the case here. I don't know if that's going to play into how this watch does at auction, but it is worth noting if you are interested in bidding on it. It's a beautiful piece though, so if you are looking for a crash, it's one that's coming up. Lot 66 is incredibly cool. So this is a Jaeger-LeCoultre triple calendar moon phase watch, but this isn't just any, this is a black dial version of this piece. From what I can tell, this dial is original. I don't think Christie sort of has confirmed any of this, but it's a beautiful black dial that comes with this piece. The triple calendar moon phases from Jaeger-LeCoultre are extremely rare. I think I've spoken about this, and I've covered a couple of these on the channel. But what's incredible about these pieces, I think, is this triple step case they have, and these really cool long lugs that make this watch fit or wear a little bit larger. All the pieces that I've sort of come in contact with have had white dials. This watch has a black dial with these incredible numerals. Obviously hour indicators 1 through 12 that have aged really nicely. You then have red text for the date around the outside of the dial, and red text for the day of the week and the month below the Jaeger-LeCoultre signature. The patina on this watch is really, really great. The case is really, really strong. This is such a unique Jaeger-LeCoultre, and I really, really love it. So check out pictures of this, because I don't think you're going to see another black dial version of this anytime soon. I'm going to briefly talk about lot 84 for Christie's. There is a Tiffany blue Nautilus that's selling. It's quite interesting to see this watch at auction. I don't know if this was an allocation piece or who's put this up for auction, but a Tiffany blue, if you didn't know, there are about 170 of these made. I think it was 170. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it's 170 of these pieces were made. Obviously, a couple have been sold, a couple have been spotted on people's wrists, but it is interesting that this one is at auction. I don't know what Patek Philippe is really thinking about this one being at auction. They did allocate this to some sort of Patek Philippe collector they really like. This person might have gotten it for retail. So, I don't know. It's interesting that it's at auction. It's interesting what Patek Philippe is thinking about this. And I think it's going to be telling what this watch actually goes for. The estimate's 2 to 4 million Swiss francs. But, has the market cooled off? We'll have to see with this lot. Lastly, for the Christie's auction, I wanted to talk about lot 132. It's a really beautiful $24.99. This is a watch that, for many collectors, is really considered the creme de la creme, the ultimate Patek Philippe watch that you can own and enjoy. Overall, this watch is in really great condition. I want to say the case is probably unpolished. From what I can see from this piece, it's a first series, which I think there are other series that collectors like more, but the first series is a really great watch. I think they figured out proportions eventually, but I think this is a great example of this piece. It's from 1953. What more can you say about a $24.99? I think these are still going to have strong results. They're hard to get your hands on. They're very, very rare, and for many is the ultimate piece. It comes from the original owner, which a lot of people are looking for nowadays when they're trying to find vintage watches that they want to own. They really want people to. They want original. They want original owner pieces, and I think that is something that is desirable, and I think this watch is a great example. That is the Christie's Rare Watches auction. Again, there's links in the show notes to all these pieces, so check out the images as you kind of listen along for this podcast. All right, so Sotheby's is our last auction that we're going to talk about. They have their important watches auction. That's super exciting. I'm going to talk through a couple of the lots here. Lot 9 is one I wanted to start with. This is a really cool reference, 49503 from Vacheron Constantin. It's from 1999, so on the modern side, but many people are starting to think that this is sort of neo-vintage. This is a chronograph with a date complication at 6 o'clock. It's thought that 35 pieces were produced, 10 pieces in yellow gold and 25 pieces in white gold. This piece has a white gold case with a diamond set sort of outer bezel and diamond set hour markers. I'm not really into diamonds with the watches that I typically collect, but I do think this was done fairly tastefully, and I think this is a nice way if you're trying to sort of dress, if you're dressing up or trying to find something that's sort of great for black tie. This is a really cool watch to add to a collection for this. Cream dial, beautiful 3-register chronograph. The date is, I don't know if I like the date or not. I could take it or leave it, but I do think it's a beautiful piece. Lot 23 is a really incredible Patek Philippe gondolo in this really cool tonneau-shaped case from 1913. For me, what's really attractive about this piece is, one, the leaf hands, two, the sort of exploded numerals on the dial of this piece. It's an 18-karat yellow gold from 1913, so a really historical piece from Patek Philippe, and really, really beautiful. The gondolas were originally made as pocket watches, but they did make a couple of wristwatches that had this as well. I absolutely love this piece, and if you look at the extract that does come with this piece, it was manufactured in 1913 and sold in 1924. The movement was made in 1913 and then cased in 1924. So the movement kind of was around a little bit longer than the case that this watch came in. Lot 51 is a really cool GMT Master reference 6542 Captain Warren. This watch is from 1958, and I actually wanted to talk about this piece because I think this is a really great example of how collectors are going to look at the patina of watches. So if you look at this piece, what you'll see is obviously some really great patina on the dial, the hour markers, the hands, and then the bezel. You see this really beautiful sort of aged tan yellow look to a lot of these pieces. But what is really interesting is how stark white the second hand is. Now, if you do look at the end of the lollipop of this watch, the patina on that lollipop round piece is quite in line with the patina on the hour markers. But for collectors, that is something that they're going to be looking at and saying, do I like the way that looks? Another thing with this is that it looks like there's a little bit of age on the actual Rolex, the Rolex crown on the dial, and I think that might it attracts different types of collectors, whether they like it or not. So I think this is a really cool example to look at. To understand sort of the age of how these pieces age. Now, one thing that's very significant about this watch, and I'll sort of read the extract as Sotheby's has written it. The present watch was made in 1958 and belonged to Captain Clarence Warren Jr. is being offered for sale from his family. Born in 1917, Warren was recruited by Pan Am straight out of the military and became a captain with the airline at the young age of 25. Living in a small bubble of the Pan Am pilots and employed by Ridgefield, Connecticut, Clarence very much embodied the slick, jet-setting airline captain airline captain wearing a Rolex and driving a Porsche 356. Warren was often requested by the White House by name to ferry the president, members of cabinet, and the White House press to various locations, such as in 1916 when he was asked to fly President Eisenhower to Hawaii, for whom he had met and flown several times over the course of his career. Earlier in 1959, when Vice President Nixon visited the Soviet Union, the White House requested Warren to pilot a nonstop New York to Moscow flight, which was considered a feat of passenger aviation, and the opportunity was not missed by executives at Rolex. Speaking with the family of Captain Warren, they believed that the watch was given to him ahead of the flight by Rolex, which he then wore religiously when flying. In many cases, the present watch can be seen on Warren's wrist in the 1959 Pan Am Flies on Rolex Time advert, and is still viewable as the banner on the Rolex website on the Conquering of the Skies page. In addition, the watch is known and has been covered. So what makes this watch really, really significant is the fact that it was used heavily in advertisement. It was worn by a person who interacted and flew incredibly historic people in the history of the USA, and was conquering these feats of great of greatness when it came to aviation. So I don't know, it's a very significant piece in the history of the GMT, of Pan Am, of Rolex, of so many different things, and definitely one that I wanted to call out here. A personal favorite watch of mine is a reference 2597 from Patek Philippe, and that's what Lot 72 is. This is a really beautiful yellow gold 2597 made in 1960. This piece is this reference was produced in the 1960s, and really minimalistic dial with hours, minutes, and a sub-seconds register. This is a very clean dial, but what you do have is these pushers that allow you to progress time forward nicely. So it truly is an elegant time-only piece, and one that has a very cool complication. When I look at the case, one of the things that also catches my attention is the fact that it looks like there's some oxidation on the lugs, especially on the right side of the case. That is something that, it's weird. I feel like I look for that in cases now, but it's not the only thing that I look at when I'm looking for watches. Last watch I want to talk about is a really beautiful reference 98 Rolex Padalone, reference 8171 in yellow gold from 1950. One of the things I liked about this piece is actually the patina on the dial. It's fairly consistent. Very desirable reference from Rolex, but the patina on the dial is really even, and makes you feel really good about sort of the originality of this piece. Obviously, you've got a 38 millimeter case, which is an extremely wearable watch during this time, during sort of modern times, with a triple calendar moon phase complication that Rolex put in this piece. Apparently, this watch belonged to the consignor's father and was purchased as a wedding gift in 1949 by his grandparents, or one of his grandparents, who was a watchmaker. So that's really a really cool story that kind of comes along with this piece. According to research, there were about 350 cases that were produced in yellow gold for this reference. This reference did come in yellow gold, pink gold, and stainless steel. So there are the ones. This one is number 115, which indicates it's sort of let's say halfway through the production of these pieces. But for me, the patina is incredible, and the story that comes with it is also really great. So that ends sort of some of the highlights that I wanted to mention for this podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes so you can check out some of these lots. I hope to see some of you guys at these auctions, and maybe some of you are going to be bidding. I look forward to seeing how these watches do, and how the market is doing. It's always great to have the summer auction season roll around, so I'm pretty excited about that. If you are new to Life on the Wrist, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Cover a range of topics when it comes to watches. It's really a fun way of sort of talking about watches. If you have any thoughts about some of these lots, or want to chat about some of these auctions that are coming up, you can hit us up on our social medias, or you can send us an email. Our email is on our website. You can go to lifeontherwrist.com to check that out. If you are feeling generous and wouldn't mind rating this podcast, it really does help me out. With this said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and until next time.